Hey guys, it's your girl Fuzz and welcome back to another Stardew Valley video. Today's video is a highly requested video, a farm layout idea to those with the beach farm. Let's get into it. Firstly, I want to thank those that have been patient and have been asking for the beach farm. I've definitely heard your requests. I've just been putting it off because it's one of the farms I dislike the most. Nonetheless, here is a layout that I decided to choose for my beach farm. So first we start off with clearing off the farm as I start to put together some ideas. I'm aware that there is a small area designated for the farming aspect of the game. I have always been used to a 400 space area for my crops, so I had to think a little differently on how I wanted to design the farm. The first thing that I found annoying was the crop area being blocked by some large logs. A steel axe or of better quality will be needed to chop these down, so keep this in mind. I went ahead with placing down a coop as I planned out my flooring for the farm, as flooring has always been my first go-to when designing farms. I stuck with a stone flooring and chose on most parts a 2 spacing distance. I connected the 2 north exits as I planned on making a floor space south. This didn't go too far as I plan to keep this area in front of my farmhouse as a shed area, 3 to fit perfectly here. I made a pathing to go south in the middle of this shed area and then built outwards both east and west to block off the north section of the farm. I assumed that with less space for crops, I could use a bigger area of the farm for 2 coops and 2 barns, one being on each side of this pathing. The pathing continued down south to the east of this blockage and then connected itself to the exit on the south side of the farm. I then started to section of areas I plan to build structures on. This top section was planned for obelisks in the future with a wooden pathing to keep their spacing apart. Below that was a spacing for ponds, 5 to be exact, and this little south section was left for a little surprise. Fencing I felt was important, especially for the farm animals, so fencing was placed on both the east and west side of the farm up top, where the coops and barns were planned to be placed. This ensured a big enough area for animals to roam around, but also as a nice decorating area between sections of the farm. As I had my tools upgraded, I decided to place floor pieces where I planned to place iridium sprinklers. 8 in total were placed, perfect enough to fit 192 crops. I continued the stone pathing around this, ensuring there was enough space for all the crops to be placed perfectly. I then thought about using this top section above the crops here for bee houses. Even though there wasn't a plan to plant flowers, this idea could be used if flowers were placed on the top row of your crops, whilst the rest of the spaces were used for proper crops. I kept the bee houses in an alternating pattern and placed stepping stone pathing around the vacant areas. This was the final idea. Next up, once the coop was built, I had decided to move it into its proper design position, whilst also building a barn right next door. This was replicated on the other side of the flooring for another coop and another barn. 2 silos were also placed to ensure that there was enough food for all my animals. Then it was shed time. I left enough room, perfect enough for 3 sheds. My general idea is 1 shed is safe for storage, 1 shed is safe for crystallariums, and 1 shed is full of kegs. More sheds could be placed down for your liking. You can check out a shed layout idea I had for these in my previous layout videos. I will have a link to my farm layout playlist in the description. Then it was time for ponds. I had enough space for what seemed like 5 ponds, but I soon realized the farm stopped me placing one of the farms the way that I wanted it to fit. So the idea was changed up a little, and you can see this change when I placed down the second pond. Pond 3, 4, and 5 hadn't given me any problems, and this was the result. My plan was to have rainbow trout, lava eels, super cucumber, sturgeon fish, and any other fish that may be of interest. You can check out the Stardew Valley wiki for what other fishes you may want to consider, as not only will they produce roe for you to preserve in preserve jars, but they may also drop you items. These 4 fishes that I just mentioned are my go-to in most of my playthroughs. There was a small space enough for preserve jars, so this is an idea to save you time from walking between areas of where your preserve jars might be. I then unlocked the community center, completed the wizard's quest, and unlocked his book, giving me access to 3 obelisks to fit in these spaces right here. The 3 obelisks are the ocean obelisk, the mountain obelisk, and my most used obelisk, the desert obelisk. And this is the result. And now the secret that I was saving for this part of the video was to use this empty space. Since I still wanted more crops, I decided to place down garden plots here instead. Garden plots are very useful. They allow every crop in their respective season to be grown grown outdoors, except for ancient seeds. Likewise, any crop from any season can be grown indoors in garden plots. Although these can't be watered by sprinklers, watering is required. So keep this in mind if you decide to take this idea. Also, garden plots with flowers in them will not affect bee houses nearby, so that's also a bummer. To assist with the issue of keeping your crops watered, be sure to remember fertilizers, especially retaining soil, that has a chance to keep your crops watered overnight. Basic retaining soil has a chance to keep your crops watered overnight, which is a recipe that is unlocked at level 4 of farming. Quality retaining soil has a good chance of keeping your crops watered overnight, which is unlocked at level 7 of farming. And if you have the 1.5 update, why not purchase the deluxe retaining soil from the island trader for 50 cinder shards to unlock the recipe, which will give you a 100% chance to keep your crops watered overnight. Also, keep in mind that garden plots with fertilizers in them will stay in the garden plot for the next season, unlike when fertilizers are in the ground, which will definitely disappear in the next season. Or keep food handy with you, as you may lose a lot of energy from watering your plants. Only place down the crops you're willing to water, and over time, as you upgrade your watering can, be sure to place down more. A tip I could recommend, which is more late game, is farm yourself some rain totems. At foraging level 9, you'll receive rain totems as a recipe to craft. They'll take 5 pine tar, 1 truffle oil, and 1 hardwood to craft. If you can farm each of these resources efficiently, you could be using a rain totem on days that aren't meant to be raining, assisting you in keeping your crops watered daily. This was my final day of spring crops. Not all had grown by this time, but I wanted to show you the final design. This can house 118 crops when using this design. This section west of my garden plots were used for tapped trees. I planted 1 row of each, but if you plan on making plenty of rain totems, be sure to plant more pine cones as well. And this was the final result of my farm in full. This section in front of the farm cave was decorated with some trees and fences. The coop and barn areas have plenty of space and grass for the animals to enjoy. I eventually placed a floor pathing from the top to the bottom of this blocked off area to connect both the gates on either side. Both the east and the west animal sections had more gates installed, so my lazy butt didn't have to walk far to get out the exit. This obelisk area had a final seating area instead of placing down a ginger island obelisk, since I hadn't unlocked it yet. Here are the ponds ready with some road to preserve. Here are my 4 crops ready for harvesting, which looked really awesome. I think the garden plots really came together not only to fill in the void of this space, but to also produce me a total of 310 crops for my farm. More or less could be placed around your farm depending on how much crops you really need. Beside my tapped trees were rows of mahogany trees down to the southwest. I didn't plan this area too much, so I decided to leave it be. You can either use it as a nice relaxing seating area, to use it for more garden plots, or to have more tapped trees placed here. Here is my 192 crops that had grown. This is the only way to gain yourself some giant crops, as crops grown in garden plots do not have a chance to grow into a giant crop. And I had also my alternating bee house area ready to harvest. Finally, I kept this little section right in the middle of the farm as my resting area, to those who may want to come by and kick back whilst enjoying the garden breeze. And that is all for today's video. That is all the farm layouts that are available in Stardew Valley. If there's any other farm layout you want to check out, why not check the description below, and I'll also have a playlist to all the farm layouts that I've completed. If you want to check me out live, I'm on twitch.tv/Fuzzarino. All the links are down in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.